Animals that play. Some surprises. It probably comes as no surprise to learn that play behavior can be found in many different mammal species. Human beings love to play, as do apes, monkeys, and dogs and cats. But it seems unlikely in animals other than mammals. It's hard to imagine a crocodile or a fish playing an energetic game. In ethology, the science of animal behavior, play is defined as specific unplanned activities that are enjoyable and that don't increase the survival of the animal. In other words, play is behavior that generally serves only one purpose, and that is pleasure. Although some scientists argue that it's very hard to tell what behaviors count as authentic examples of play, there is evidence of periodic play behavior in a broad range of animals, from reptiles to fish to birds. Crocodiles. Crocodiles, and related species of alligators and caiman, have been observed engaging in play. Vladimir Dinitz, an academic from the University of Tennessee, studied wild and captive animals and cataloged various types of playful behavior. He saw them playing with balls, giving each other rides on their backs, and even carrying flowers in their mouths. Young caiman in Brazil were also seen chasing other juveniles in circles. Cichlids. A colleague of Dinitz, named Gordon Berghart, also found evidence of play among aquatic animals. 3 male cichlid fish were spotted attacking a thermometer in their tank. Each time a fish struck the thermometer, it moved and then fell back into place. Berghart thought that the fish kept returning to the activity even though there was no other reward for them in doing so. Ravens. Some bird species are known to play, particularly members of the corvid family, which includes crows, rooks, and jackdaws. The largest corvid, the common raven, is a highly intelligent animal that has been observed playing with sticks and rocks and dropping and catching things in dramatic mid-air dives, apparently for the fun of it. They also engage in co-play, where 2 birds will lie on their backs and pass an object between them with their feet. The question of whether these types of play are genetic or learned behavior is a complex one. During the early months of an animal's life, the establishment of emotional relationships between parents, especially mothers, and their offspring is essential to both cognitive and emotional development. In primate species, such as chimpanzees, orangutans, and gorillas, where juveniles spend many years living with their mothers and learning important skills from them, it is likely that playful behavior is learned and passed on.
Our book of the week this week is Looking Back, the autobiography of the writer Ashley Turner. This week, Ashley moves to the big city.
After finishing college, I knew that I would have to leave the small town I loved and move to the big city to find work. It wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had always felt so at home in Rockford Falls. Some people thought my hometown was remote and dull, and I had watched my friends gradually move away one by one. Now, my turn had come. I knew moving to the big city was going to be an enormous change. Little did I know how big the change would be. I arrived by train in early July. After the peace and quiet of Rockford Falls, everything in the city seemed to be trying to get my attention. It was something I found very hard to get used to. I slept badly, and I was easily woken by everything from a cab horn to people shouting to each other across the street. No sooner would I get back to sleep than something else would wake me up. I don't think I slept for more than 4 hours straight for the first 2 months I was there. Still, in the beginning, I was confident I could make it work. I was young and in good health, and I was sure I had the energy to deal with whatever the city threw at me. I got a job in an office downtown, and I would commute every day. The train was noisy and packed with people. This was something that very quickly started to affect my mood. Rarely did I make it to the office without some kind of delay or incident along the way. Everything was so hectic, and everyone seemed to be in a hurry to get somewhere. I often wondered what was so important or so urgent that there was no time to be polite to the people around you. But that's just how it was. And I would arrive at the office already stressed. Once I was at the office, things would get better. The work was easy enough, and the people I worked with were supportive and tried their best to help me settle in. They made suggestions for places to visit to get to know the city. But at the end of the working day, the last thing I wanted to do was face the crowded streets again and go sightseeing. The streets seemed a dangerous place to be, and the local TV news would report more crime every day than happened in 6 months back in Rockford Falls. I would lock the door and work on my writing, trying my best to block out the city around me. I used my writing as an escape. And looking back now at my notebooks from the time, they are full of descriptions of the picturesque hills around Rockford Falls and the slow pace of life in that sleepy little town. I guess it was my way of escaping. After a month of this, I realized that it was really beginning to affect me. I was depressed, and I knew that I would have to leave unless I invested more time and energy in adjusting to big city life. So I took the advice of my coworkers and I started to explore parts of the city I didn't see on my daily commute. I would choose a stop on the subway that I didn't know, leave the station, and walk around for an hour or two. Gradually, I stopped seeing the city as one big place, and I started to see the lively neighborhoods that together made up the city. It was here that I could see people standing on the street corner passing the time of day, or find a peaceful small park to sit and watch what was going on. The traffic was still there. The noise was still there. But slowly I began to hear it less and to see the people behind all the activity. One day, I realized that I had written a story that was set entirely in the city, in one of the small neighborhoods I had discovered while exploring. Only then did I know that I had truly arrived.
I'm really conflicted. I see so many homeless people around here who really need help, but I'm not sure of the best way to do it. My friend said it's better that the money go to an organized charity that works with the homeless. But people say that sometimes the money does not go straight to homeless people. I want to help, but now I'm not sure how.
That's a great question, Juan. I think it's important that you be comfortable with giving, so you have to choose what's right for you. I prefer to give to organized charities, and there are a few reasons for that. Charities have to meet certain legal requirements, so you know that your money is going to be used for the intended purpose. They are responsible for where your money goes. When you give to an individual, you never know whether that money is going to be spent on things that will really help that person's situation or on things that will make it worse. Also, giving money to one person just helps that person for a day. They might be able to get a meal, but then they're back in the same situation. Charities can develop programs to provide long-term help to people. They don't just provide food to homeless people. They also help find housing and help people develop the skills they need to find jobs so they don't end up homeless again. Charities can make a real difference, but just giving to one person doesn't. Charities provide support to people who are struggling, and that can often mean they don't end up on the streets homeless.
Thanks for your comment, Amy. You make some good points.
Hi, Juan. I suggest your friend live on the streets for a week and see what it's like. Someone in that situation needs money now, not in the future as part of some program. You should do the right thing and give because you want to help the person in front of you. He or she needs to eat or needs to find a place to sleep for the night. And when you give money to someone, then they should be free to decide what to spend it on. You don't know what they need, so you can't make a decision for them. Giving people money gives them control over their own lives. You also need to think about how charities are organized. You just have to do the math to see that it's much better to give to people, not organized charities.
When you give money to a charity, then only around 60 to 70% of that money is spent on the cause you care about. The rest is spent on running the charity, including paying the salaries of staff members. When you give money to someone on the streets, you know that 100% of that money is helping that person.
Thanks, Luca. I agree with some of what you say. I guess I need to think hard about what I should do.
On Career Profile this week, we talked to 3 people who work in local government to find out what inspired them to serve their community and what their roles involve. Here's Emily Watson.
I've been working in the housing department of my local city council for around 3 years. My role involves helping people manage their housing situation. Often that means working with people who, for one reason or another, are having difficulties, often financial difficulties. You might feel that your life is fine now, but any of us can face setbacks in our lives, and it can be a very scary time. I help people budget, and I work with landlords to give people time to pay their bills and get their lives back on track. Of course, it's not always possible to prevent homelessness, and my work also involves finding housing for some people. That often means that I need to bring the housing department, the employment department, and the welfare department together to find a solution to someone's problems. I feel like I was born with lots of advantages, and it's important to me to serve my community. I guess that's something I get from my parents, both of whom work in local government. It's also based on my feelings about the city where I live. It's a great place to live and work, and I feel as though I wouldn't be doing my duty if I didn't do my best to keep it that way.
Next is Joshua Black.
I work in the environment department. It's not always the most glamorous work, but I believe it's absolutely essential that the city council protect the local environment for residents. I feel that my work contributes to the quality of life of everyone who lives within the city limits. The work can vary enormously. My department is responsible for everything from trash collection and recycling to monitoring air quality. In order to do that, I need to know about many areas of the city council's work. I need to be aware of traffic flow and highway repair. I need to be aware of local regulations controlling how businesses deal with waste. It's the environment department that really brings it all together. It's not always easy. There have been a number of cutbacks recently, so we need to prioritize what we spend our money on. I believe it's better to prevent a problem before it develops, so I focus some of my time on informing local people about the regulations and making sure they know what their recycling obligations are. As our city grows and becomes more congested, my work has an even bigger role to play in preserving the character of our community.
Finally, here's Hannah Brent.
I'm a social worker and I specialize in healthcare. That means I work with people who are facing medical problems. People don't think the social side of getting sick is important. They often forget that getting sick is more than just a medical problem. A doctor can treat the medical symptoms, but getting sick can also affect a person's life. It can lead to unemployment or other problems. I help people adjust to big changes in their lives. I think we can judge a community based on how well it takes care of those people whose lives are in crisis. I'm proud that my work gets people back on their feet and helps them to lead full lives. I think you need to be a particular kind of person to do this job, one who can understand another person's situation. You also need to understand the structure of the organizations you have to work with. When you are trying to help someone with a number of different problems, you need to know who to contact and what they can do for you. When you're dealing with a local government department that has very limited resources, you may need all your skills of persuasion to get what the person needs for their well-being. It's a demanding role, but you can really make a positive difference in people's lives.
What is creativity? We think we know creative people when we see them. Artists who create works of art that are praised by large numbers of people are creative. Certain professions, such as writers and inventors, are seen as creative. However, is creativity something that is limited to the creative arts or creative professions? What is creativity, and what role can it play in our lives? There are many definitions of creativity, but most definitions agree that creativity involves two processes: thinking and producing. It is neither a passive nor a formulaic process. Being creative means both having original ideas and putting those ideas into practice. As with many other abilities, creativity not only varies between individuals, but also varies over the course of your life. Interestingly, children are more creative than adults. When the American Space Agency, NASA, needed to test the creative abilities of engineers and scientists, they turned to George Land. Land was an expert in creativity, and he created a simple test for NASA to use. Land decided that the test was so simple that even children could do it, so he got 1,600 5-year-olds to take the test. 98% of them got a genius score on the test. 5 years later, when the same children were 10, 30% got the same score. After another 5 years, only 12% were classified as creative geniuses. It seems that the older we get, the less creative we are. This may be because we become better at convergent thinking as we age. This is the kind of thinking where we learn to give the expected solution to a problem. This is an important skill when it comes to taking standardized tests. This is different from divergent thinking, which is the kind of thinking we use when we use our imagination to explore many possible solutions to a problem. We seem to find divergent thinking more difficult as we get older. Thankfully, there are many ways to improve creativity. One tip is to set aside time each day to practice creative thinking without any distractions from, for example, your phone. You should either turn your phone off completely or leave it in another room. This gives your mind a little time to think creatively about any problems you may have. Another way of giving yourself time to be creative is to take a long walk. And when you come up with some good ideas, make sure to write them down. Keeping a creativity journal is a productive way to help connect your ideas to other ideas. Another tip is to change something in your environment, such as painting your room blue. The color blue has been shown to boost creativity.
Hi, Jordan. What's with all the bags?
Oh, hi, Chelsea. I just went to the store. I needed milk, orange juice, and vegetables. Oh, I forgot to get the orange juice. I always forget something.
You should do what I do. When I have to get things from the grocery store, I take a photo of the inside of the refrigerator. Then later, standing in the supermarket, I can check the photo and see what I need. It's a life hack.
A life hack? What's that?
It's a simple, creative way of making your life better. Life hacks often involve finding a creative use for everyday objects or doing things in a slightly different way. Let me think of another example. Oh, I know. My keys all look the same, so I put a small circle of nail polish on them in different colors so I can tell them apart.
That's interesting. I'm always looking for relatively easy ways to improve my life. Do you know any other life hacks?
There are lots of them. Some of them are totally stupid, but some are extremely useful. I know a few good ones for the kitchen. Have you ever had problems opening a jar?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Turn it upside down and put it in hot water. This hack works because the lid and the jar are made of two different materials. The glass jar expands very little. However, being metal, the lid expands more when it gets hot, which makes it easier to open. Here's another one. When you're boiling something in hot water, it's easy for it to boil over and go all over the stove. Just put a wooden spoon across the top of the saucepan and it won't happen.
Huh, great ideas. Do you have any others?
Let me see. Do you ever have problems finding the end of a roll of sticky tape? Put a paperclip on the end when you use it. That way, you know exactly where the end is next time. Oh, and here's a great use for sticky tape. Use it to clean your computer keyboard. It picks up all the bits of dirt from between the keys.
I'm definitely going to use that one. Do you have any others connected to technology?
Oh, yeah, sure. One problem I have is that the charger on my laptop keeps falling out. It's incredibly annoying. I stuck a small piece of Velcro to the cable and to the laptop, and now I don't have that problem. I've got another good one for the summer and going to the beach. Take an old suntan lotion bottle and clean it out. You can put your money and your keys in there to keep everything safe when you don't have pockets.
That sounds especially interesting because I'm always worried about losing my keys at the beach. I'm going to try that next time. All these life hacks seem to be about physical objects. You mentioned doing things differently. What kind of things do you mean?
Well, let's suppose you have a poor memory.
Yeah, that's me. It can be somewhat embarrassing.
One thing you can try is to do something unusual to help you remember something. For example, if you're going on vacation and you're locking the door to your house, try pulling your ear. Then, when you wonder if you locked the door, you'll remember pulling your ear. What about forgetting people's names when you meet them? One trick is to make sure you use their name the first time you meet them. You could say, "Great to meet you, Alice," or "What work do you do, Alice?" to make sure you remember Alice's name. Having used her name a couple of times, you're less likely to forget it.
I'm definitely going to use those techniques. Thanks. Now, I'd better go back to the store and get some orange juice.
Welcome back to the show. Next up, we have two people who work in the creative fields, Daniel and Kayla. Let me start with you, Daniel. You're an actor. People might imagine that this means fame and lots of money, but that's not generally true, is it?
No, it isn't, or at least it's not true for most people. To be honest, if you're motivated by making lots of money, then becoming an actor isn't a very smart career move. The average actor earns very little, and there's very little job security, so an actor spends a fair amount of time between jobs. The main reason I got into it was that it allows me to express myself creatively, so there's lots of job satisfaction. But it's hard at the beginning. I went to directors and offered to take any part just to get started. I went to lots of auditions and was rejected a lot, but I never gave up. Finally, I got a small part in a production, and I was on my way.
Being an actor is the kind of career where you need to be very motivated and you need to show self-direction, wouldn't you say?
That's absolutely right. There isn't a clear career structure like there is in some jobs, so you need to be able to direct your own career. One of the ways you do that is by always doing what you say you're going to do. If you arrange a meeting or an audition and you don't show up, people soon start to think you are unprofessional. Another way is that you need to develop contacts in the acting world. Networking is very important because when a director is choosing an actor for a production, you want to be in the director's mind, and you want him or her to know that you're available and interested. Having good contacts is vital.
It certainly sounds as if it's not a job for people who just want to do what they're told by a manager. Kayla, you're a graphic designer. How did you get started?
It's really a competitive area. I studied graphic design in college, but it seemed impossible to get a job. I knew which company I wanted to work for, a large advertising company. I decided to try to impress them by creating my own advertising campaign for a product. I chose a brand of sneakers, and I designed ads to appear online. That way, I had something to show the company I wanted to work for. And it was successful. They interviewed me and they liked my work. They hired me, and I've been working there for a year now.
That's a great story. And how does self-direction play a role in your working life now?
I work with my manager to plan projects. Having done that, it's up to me to decide exactly how I do things. We work on a tight schedule, so I have to manage my time very well. It's surprising how quickly you can run into problems if you don't do that. I like to keep a good work-life balance, so I make sure that I keep my weekends free, even if it means 1 or 2 late nights when I'm very busy.
What would you say to young people who are at the start of their careers?
It can be hard to get noticed because these days a lot of people are often competing for the same jobs. Employers want people who can show that they are able to direct themselves. One way of doing that is to look for opportunities for professional development. That might mean finding relevant courses and asking your employer to pay for the extra training, or even paying for it yourself. If you can show self-direction and prove that you are being proactive about your career, you become much more attractive to your current employer or any future employer.
Thank you for that, Kayla and Daniel. That's all the time we have for this week.
Welcome to Out There, our weekly podcast on unusual people and events. The recording I'm going to play is a type of announcement that is all too familiar to people who live in the central part of the United States, known as Tornado Alley. Don't worry, it's just part of the podcast. There isn't actually a tornado. For people unfamiliar with this type of announcement, here is what it sounds like.
This is a weather alert. There are tornadoes in the area. Take shelter now. If you are inside, do not go outside. If you are in a building with a basement, go to the basement. If there is no basement, take shelter in an interior room with no windows or only small windows, such as a bathroom. Do not stay in a room with many windows. Do not go to buildings with large roofs like gymnasiums or auditoriums. Large roofs can collapse easily. If you are outside, find a low area, lie down on the ground, and cover your head. If you are in a car, do not stay in your car. Stop driving, get out of the car, and lie down in a low area away from the car. Repeat, there are tornadoes in the area, and there is an immediate threat of danger. This has been a weather alert.
Now, we're not going to talk about tornadoes we've seen or heard about. Instead, we're talking to meteorologist Paul Lennox. I'm sure you're thinking that meteorology is not a very unusual job, right? Meteorologists look at charts and radar screens and forecast the weather, of course. But Paul is what we might call an extreme meteorologist. Paul, can you explain what you do?
Sure. I'm a stormchaser, a person that drives around looking for tornadoes. We get as close as possible to the tornado to video it, and we use special instruments to record what is happening with the tornado in real time.
So, when we see those alerts on our phones or hear them on the radio or TV, we follow the instructions and take shelter immediately. But you do the opposite, right?
Absolutely. In fact, by the time you get that alert, I'm usually already in the area where the tornado is forming. We constantly check weather reports to assess the conditions and predict whether there will be tornadoes. I live in Oklahoma, which has many, many tornadoes because of the flat landscape and the climate. That area of the United States is actually called Tornado Alley.
Well, I've heard that storm chasers are usually just people who like doing crazy, dangerous things. Are there actually professional storm chasers?
It's true that many storm chasers are amateurs and not professionals. They just want to have a thrill and try to get a great video. They don't always follow safety procedures and, at times, even make the situation more dangerous by doing things like blocking escape roads with their cars. I was actually in the area one day when a couple of storm chasers were killed. They were amateurs who were in a car that wasn't designed to handle high winds. However, professional storm chasers like me try to do things as safely as possible. We're usually trained meteorologists and we perform useful services.
Well, I guess if you're there when a tornado happens, you can accurately report on the situation.
Yes, absolutely. The Weather Service depends on radar stations, and those are usually at least 5 minutes behind real time. Tornadoes move fast, and they can suddenly change direction. Storm chasers near the tornado can report what's happening in real time to the Weather Service and local news organizations. This can save lives because people receive earlier warnings.
And do storm chasers help in any way to gather information and record data on tornadoes?
Yes, the experts do. For example, videos taken very near a tornado can be used later to create or improve computer models of how tornadoes form. We also conduct research by placing different devices in the path of a tornado that take measurements of wind speed, air pressure, and temperature. We can then analyze these statistics, which helps us understand different types of tornadoes better. All of that contributes to public safety.
So now I have a better understanding of what a storm chaser's job actually is.
Well, I should say that you probably won't find storm chaser in many job listings. I mean, for most storm chasers, it's not really an official job. They usually get paid by news organizations for their close-up videos of tornadoes. I'm lucky because I do it as part of my job as an atmospheric scientist, but it's usually more of a hobby.
Well, it's an interesting hobby, and it's great to hear that most storm chasers perform an important function. And thank you for trying to keep people who live in tornado alleys safer. Thanks to our listeners, and remember that people interested in hearing more about storm chasing can stream the long version of this interview on our website.